welcome to my kitchen. I'm Steve, and on this episode of Cooking with Love, I'm going to be showing you how to make an apple strudel. Now, it's not going to be the traditional method of making apple strudel. It's going to be a quick and easy way. It's a recipe I found many years ago that uses a frozen puff pastry that you buy in the grocery store. I've made apple strudel traditionally. After you make your dough, you have to get a clean tablecloth and roll out the dough on the tablecloth, and then placing your hands underneath the tablecloth, you kind of stretch out the dough until it's paper thin, and then you roll it up, and it creates all these nice flaky layers. But it's a lot of work, and it's really, with this new recipe using puff pastry, it comes out almost as good. It's certainly it's going to be a winner with your family. All right, let's get started. The ingredients we need to make our apple strudel are apples, and today I'm going to be using a combination of Gala and Honeycrisp. You can use any apples that you like as long as they're baking apples. The baking apples have a firmer flesh, and they're not going to break down into applesauce when they're cooked. We also need some sugar, brown sugar and white granulated sugar, some cinnamon, some butter, vanilla extract, some lemon juice, raisins, and plain white breadcrumbs. We also need our puff pastry. These were frozen. I took them out to defrost overnight in the refrigerator, so they're still cold. They just came out of the refrigerator. And we'll need 1 egg to make an egg wash with. All right, let's start putting this together. The first step is to prepare our apples. So I'm going to peel, core, and dice up the apples into small cubes. I'm just going to continue till all the apples are prepared. Now that our apples are all cut up, we're going to add the lemon juice to the apples. This helps it prevent it from turning brown. And we're just going to give it a toss. All right, I'm going to get a large frying pan now. We're going to melt our butter. Our pan is on medium heat. We're going to add the butter. We're going to allow this to melt down. Our butter is melted. We're going to add the apples. And just give them a stir with the butter. And then we add our sugars. The brown, the white, and we're going to add our cinnamon. We're going to stir this up well. Turn the heat down to a medium-low, and you can see our apples are all coated now with the butter-sugar mixture. We're going to cook them for a couple minutes. The apples have been cooking for a couple minutes. I'm going to add the vanilla and the raisins. And give it a good stir. And we want to cook this for about 5 minutes or so, the raisins will start to plump up and the apples will just start to get tenderized. Now we don't want to overcook the apples because remember they're going to cook in the oven for about a half hour, so we don't want them turning into applesauce. We just want to tenderize them. Now our apples have been cooking for about 4 minutes or so, and they're just starting to become tender. So I took them off the heat. The next step is we're going to add the breadcrumbs. The breadcrumbs are going to sop up all that delicious apple juice that's on the bottom of the pan, and it's going to give it a nice texture. It's also going to bind and thicken the apple mixture, so when we fill our pastry. So we're going to mix this in well, and now we do have to let this cool completely. So about an hour or so till it really comes down to room temperature. And while it's cooling down, I'm going to go ahead and turn my oven on to 400 degrees and allow it to preheat. Our apple filling has cooled down, so we're going to prepare our puff pastry. Now, just to make a note of it, I made sure I kept the puff pastry in the refrigerator to keep it cool. So I'm going to lightly dust our cutting board and make sure the puff pastry is coated with flour. Now we're going to roll this out thinner. We want to roll it till it's about 12 by 15 inches. Now that the pastry is rolled out, we're going to approximate 1/3 of the distance in from each end. I'm just going to make a little mark here so I can know where my third is. And the same thing on this side. And now we're going to create a braid. So cutting no more than 1/3 in, we're going to make slits on a diagonal. And the slits are going to be about 1 inch wide. Now I'm going to turn this around, and we want to make sure we keep the diagonals on the same direction. So we're going to be cutting from the bottom here. And just try to approximate where they are on the opposite side. We want to have the same number of slits on both sides. Now I have my cooled apple mix. I'm just going to divide this roughly in half. And I'm going to put half of the mixture right in the center. I have to say the apple filling smells really good. The cinnamon and the vanilla. So starting at one end, I'm going to fold over the large flaps first, and then over this little pocket, and I'm going to crimp it, pinch it close. Now we're going to start with each braid. Bring it over and pinch it. All right, and just make sure it's pinched tightly. And I'm going to transfer this over to parchment paper. All right, our puff pastries are filled. I have an egg wash now, and I'm just going to coat the pastry in egg wash. All right, it's ready for the oven. It goes in for 30 to 35 minutes at 400 degrees. Our strudel has just come out of the oven. We want to allow it to cool down before we serve it. You don't want to serve this too hot. Warm is fine. It's also really good if you want to serve it with some ice cream or whipped cream or even a vanilla cream sauce. I'm just going to give our strudel a little taste test here. See how it came out. The crust is nice and flaky. It's got a good amount of filling. It's really, really good. The apple's flavor is very prominent. You can taste a little bit of the vanilla, the cinnamon, really delicious. It's just a little bit warm now. Again, this is great with a little bit of whipped cream on it. Very simple to make, as you saw. Give it a try. We'll see you on the next episode.